Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I've got to say, this is one of those little General Hospital clues that makes me sit up and pay attention. Maxie Jones may have been away from Port Charles, but Kirsten Storms just dropped a tiny hint that could mean we haven't seen the last of her after all. And honestly, when a soap star suddenly changes her look and turns up back in California, I start wondering what's really going on behind the scenes. On Friday, August 14, Storm shared a selfie on her Instagram story with a simple message saying she was back in California and back to blonde hair. Now, that may sound like no big deal, but longtime GH fans know that blonde hair has been closely associated with her look as Maxie. That little detail immediately caught my attention. What makes this even more interesting is that Storms has been living in Tennessee while General Hospital is filmed in California. So why make the trip back? Of course, this alone does not prove that Maxie is returning to Port Charles, and I wouldn't put the cart before the horse. But come on, folks, when the actress who plays Maxie suddenly goes blonde and returns to the same state where GH is filmed, it's hard not to wonder if something is happening. The timing is especially curious because Maxie has already had a complicated year. After Storms moved to Tennessee in July 2025, Maxie was written out temporarily by putting the character into a coma. That gave the actress some time away, and when Maxie finally returned to the screen in February 2026, her comeback did not last very long. That is why this new California and blonde clue feels different to me. Maxie is currently rumored to be in Australia, so if she really is coming back, GH has plenty of room to make her return dramatic. And you know how this show works. Characters rarely come home quietly. They come back carrying secrets, unfinished business, or a problem big enough to shake up half of Port Charles. I also think the writers have a lot to work with if Maxie returns. She has deep connections throughout Port Charles, especially through her family and longtime friendships. Bringing her back would not just give fans another familiar face, it could also open the door to several emotional stories that have been sitting on the shelf. So, am I saying Maxie is definitely coming back? No. I'm not ready to call it a done deal. But I'll tell you this, the blonde hair, the return to California, and the timing are enough to make me raise an eyebrow. Sometimes on a soap, the smallest clue is the one worth watching. And if Kirsten Storms really is preparing to step back into Maxie's shoes, I have a feeling Port Charles is about to get a whole lot more interesting. Maxie has been through plenty, and I'd love to see what kind of trouble or surprise she brings through those doors this time. This is where things get even more interesting. Because just when I thought Maxie Jones had finally settled into her new life away from Port Charles, Kirsten Storms gave fans another reason to start wondering. Back in June, Storms was very clear that she did not expect to return to General Hospital anytime soon. She explained that after everything that had happened, she could not say she would feel comfortable going back to Los Angeles and continuing to work there. That statement mattered because it sounded much more serious than a simple break from the show. To me, it felt like Storms was leaving the door closed for the time being. And honestly, I understood why fans took her word seriously. When an actress has been part of a soap for so many years, stepping away is not something viewers simply forget overnight. Maxie is deeply connected to Port Charles, so when Kirsten steps away, you can really feel that absence. But now we have this curious little development. Storms has returned to California, and she has also returned to blonde hair, a look that longtime viewers immediately associate with Maxie. Is that proof she is returning? No. I don't want to jump the gun. But let's be honest, folks. It certainly gives us something to chew on. The timing is what really gets me. Just a few weeks ago, Maxie and her entire family left Port Charles. The explanation was simple enough. Damien Spinelli received a job opportunity in Australia, so the family packed up and moved. From a storytelling standpoint, it gave the show a convenient way to write Maxie out while allowing her to remain alive and connected to the story. But soap operas have never been famous for keeping things simple. A move to Australia does not mean Maxie has to stay there forever. If the writers decide they need her back, they can find a reason in a heartbeat. Maybe something happens with her family. Maybe there is a problem Spinelli cannot handle on his own. Maybe Maxie suddenly realizes there is unfinished business waiting for her in Port Charles. Heck, she could simply receive one phone call that changes everything. And that's exactly why I think the possibility of Maxie returning alone is so fascinating. Imagine her family remaining in Australia while Maxie comes back to Port Charles to deal with something personal. That would give the writers a chance to bring her into the action without immediately undoing the family's entire move. It would also make her return feel more meaningful because she would have a specific reason for coming home. I can already picture the emotional weight of that kind of story. Maxie walking back into familiar places after being away, seeing people she has known for years, and realizing that Port Charles has changed while she was gone. That's the kind of soap story I enjoy because it is not just about shocking twists. It is about what happens when someone returns to a place that still feels like home, even after life has taken them somewhere completely different. And let's not forget how much history Maxie has in this town. She isn't some random character who can appear for a week and disappear without anyone noticing. Maxie has built relationships, friendships, and family connections across Port Charles for years. Her return could affect several people at once, and that is where the fun begins. One person could be thrilled to see her, another might have questions. Someone else could have a secret they absolutely do not want Maxie discovering. That's classic General Hospital territory right there. What makes this even more interesting is that Storm's June comments and her recent California appearance seem to tell two very different stories. In June, she essentially told fans not to expect her back anytime soon. Now, weeks later, she is back in California and sporting the blonde look again. Could circumstances have changed? Absolutely. Life changes, plans change, actors' schedules change. A decision made in June does not necessarily have to remain the decision in August. That's why I think fans should leave a little room for possibility here. At the same time, I don't want to pretend that a social media post is an official announcement. It isn't. Kirsten Storms has not confirmed that she is returning to General Hospital, and the show has not announced a Maxie comeback either. Until somebody involved with the production actually confirms it, this remains speculation. Still, I have been watching soaps long enough to know that sometimes the little things get people talking for a reason. The blonde hair especially caught my attention. Maybe Storm simply wanted her old look back. Maybe she was ready for a change. Maybe the trip to California had absolutely nothing to do with General Hospital. All of those possibilities are on the table. But if you ask me what I would like to see, I'd like to see Maxie come home. Not necessarily for some giant over-the-top mystery. She doesn't need to return with a suitcase full of secrets and a villain chasing her down the street. Sometimes the strongest return is simply a character coming back because there are people and problems they cannot leave behind. And Maxie has plenty of unfinished business waiting for her. I also think bringing Maxie back could give the show a nice emotional change of pace. General Hospital has been throwing plenty of heavy drama at viewers lately. A familiar face like Maxie could bring some warmth, humor, and that little spark that comes from watching someone you have known for years step back into the story. So right now, I'm keeping one foot on the ground and one eyebrow raised. I'm not calling this a confirmed return, because it isn't. But I am certainly keeping an eye on Kirsten Storms and whatever happens next. If Maxie really is preparing to return to Port Charles, I have a feeling the show will find a way to make her arrival count. And after sending her all the way to Australia, bringing her back would be a pretty big move. For now, though, all we can do is wait and watch. Maybe this is nothing more than a blonde hairstyle and a trip to California. Or maybe, just maybe, Maxie Jones is getting ready to come home. And if that happens, well, folks, I won't complain one bit. Poor Charles could always use another familiar face, and Maxie has never been the kind of woman who quietly walks into town and stays out of trouble.